Nicky Campbell, Mary Nightingale and Nick Knowles.
Good evening and welcome to Central Weekend. Tonight we name names and talk to men who stand accused of crimes both real and imaginary. Imaginary in the case of this man, though you wouldn't think it from the number of column inches he's generated. He was a foreman of the jury that put Coronation Street's Dear Deirdre behind bars. Are TV soaps seriously interfering with our sense of reality?
They like to call themselves doormen or security supervisors. To the rest of us, they're bouncers, a description that better fits what some of them have been up to recently outside Midland clubs. So should we ever let a bouncer with a criminal record anywhere near a club door?
But we begin with a man who, though he'll never stand trial for it, nevertheless stands accused of causing the death of his neighbour. 46-year-old John Vanderstam hanged himself in his Birmingham Terrace home because he couldn't any longer stand the noise coming from next-door neighbours. In a suicide note, John said he couldn't take it anymore. The Birmingham coroner made his view clear when he said,
I believe he died as a result of an assault just as much as a man who is hit in the face and falls to the ground.
The question, are we doing enough to stop noisy neighbours driving innocent people to despair and worse? Kevin Beattie, you live in that street, you live next to, or very near, 5 doors away, isn't it, from Lee Burke, who is accused of having caused the noise which drove this man to suicide. What's it like living near to Lee Burke?
Well, when he was there, it was like loud music, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. He verbally abuses people. His whole attitude is aggressive. He does a lot of things like his young son was urinated in our front garden. He's left rubbish up our entry, nappies and bottles and stuff.
And you were 5 doors away. Could you hear the music?
Oh yes, yeah. And when he first arrived in the street, yes.
And what was the sort of relationship? What was going on? Can you understand why this man who committed suicide was driven to that point? Can you understand? Because he lived very, very near to Lee, didn't he?
Yeah, I can't really answer for John, but
yeah,
if it affects him that much, then people do sort of take things in that way. So it must have been very.
Lee, these constant noise levels at 4 o'clock in the morning. Why didn't you just turn it down and have consideration for other people?
Well, I miss when I first moved in there. After about a month. I did have the music. I'll admit to you, Nick, I did have the music on. Like any other young person would have play the music.
Yeah, but you've got to have consideration for other people.
Yes, but I didn't, you say, think it was a problem, because I didn't think it was like to a maximum that it was going to cause any animosity or any friction. After this, it went on for about a week. And his son, the one who's deceased now, knocked the door and he told me politely, he says, can you turn the music down, please? Because my father's 80 years of age and he can do that. And I've turned around and I've gone, yes, okay, no problem. And, that was
For a
it.
start, we never had it on at 4 o'clock in the morning because we've got 2 young babies that are in bed sleeping. So it couldn't have been that loud for you to hear it down the road, because I've got more respect for my children than anybody else.
And where it goes.
So you let your children urinate?
No, our child never urinated in your garden because our child's wearing nappies.
Nico,
and he don't go out wearing
pants.
He's in nappies.
Urinate in our garden?
No, he
That
didn't.
is a lie.
You're telling lies.
That is a lie.
You're telling lies.
That is
You're telling lies. Because you don't know me. From the first time...
When you
I
first seen
don't
us,
know
you
you
don't
either,
like
mate.
us,
But
but
from
when
the
you
first
first saw
time
us-
you ever seen me, you didn't like me.
Yes,
You didn't
because of
like
what-
me, right?
Because of how you upset the
All right, Lee,
Vanderstam
obviously
from day
we've
one.
stumbled upon some neighbourhood animosities here. But let's get back to noise. You were issued with a noise abatement order by the council. Clearly, you were making a lot of noise. More than you should
No, it
have
wasn't a lot of noise at all.
Nicky,
It wasn't,
we're young
no.
people. We've got 2 little babies in the house. Obviously, this never went on at 4 o'clock in the morning at all. Obviously, the house is going to be loud.
Louise,
and it was
hang
loud.
on, Lee.
But that is only because
You make a point there, you're young people, but there are also middle-aged people and there are older people living in the
and we've got
neighbourhood.
respect for old people, and that's what that man's took for granted. He knew we weren't going to say nothing to him because he was old, and he's got an scapegoat. It was him that done something to his son, because I've seen his son walking
You can't
down.
make those accusations.
I'm
That's
sorry,
a
but
terrible,
it wasn't
terrible thing
us,
to
it
accuse
wasn't
anyone of.
us.
This man's just lost his
Nicky,
son.
please listen to what I've got to say, right? What Louise is saying, there must have been a lot
That
more
man-
stress on that man's head
Okay,
for him to
okay,
take
but
his
Lee,
life.
that's
You
fair
don't
enough.
take your life over a a bit of music. You don't. And that, I'm sorry.
Lee. Okay, let me just go to Councillor Hassel over here, who's a Liberal Democrat councillor who's taken an interest in noise pollution. Go on, sir.
I'm a member of the Environmental Association. We do not issue noise abatement to anybody. Just like that, at a drop of a hat.
Yeah.
So what was
last year, last 12 months, we've issued 2,000 notices.
I'm the one in the excuse me.
Down to 300, and that came down to 9 prosecutions. We do not go round issuing out noise abatement cessations to anybody.
All right,
you
Lieber.
have to break the law.
Thank you, Councillor Hassel. Lieber, let me ask you a question. Would you consider yourself a considerate neighbour?
Yes. No. Yes, very considerate. Very considerate.
Kevin, is that your experience?
No, not at all.
No, well, it wouldn't be, would you?
Not at all. Your attitude, your whole attitude. You even verbally abused my mum.
Did I?
My mum is recently widowed.
Yeah.
Like, there's no need for it. You're picking on the weaker people in our street.
No, the
Mr.
weaker
Van der
people
Stan, retired. My mum, retired. You've even forced her to
Nicky,
walk
can I come back to the point? Can I come back to the point?
Yeah.
To say, right, if the noise was that bad, it was in the Birmingham Post the other day, right, to say, this man, Mr. Van der Stan, right, he was given so many chances if the noise was going on that much.
Why didn't he phone the police?
Right, wasn't the police officers?
No police was
to my
involved.
address,
We had
and the
one
lady, hold on a
complaint.
minute.
Hang on a minute. You were issued with a noise abatement order by the council.
That was the first time. That's when I quitted the noise down. But he's saying now, Nicky, right, that we consistently, right, made disruptions and all sorts from the noise, right? So therefore, in a paragraph in the Birmingham Post
there was a noise monitor
day,
in the man's house next door, and it never worked because
the
music weren't
man,
going
and there's proof, and this is in the media. The man, the spokeswoman for the Birmingham Council says, right, this man, Mr. Van der Stan, was given so many opportunities to seek
take
out,
the matter
right?
further,
He never
and
did
he never bothered.
Well, sadly, whatever was wrong in his life, and maybe there were a whole lot of other factors, but something, and we don't know what it is, drove him over the edge.
Because every time I've seen that
Jenny
poor man,
Pope.
he had his face to the ground, smoking a cigar, and he really looked depressed, and that wasn't over music, Nico.
Well, he was a vulnerable person, and the thing is, in neighbourhoods, we have to have sensitivity, and we have to think about vulnerable people, and we have to behave accordingly.
Not my fault,
and that's the point.
Music,
Jenny Pope, you had a noisy neighbour for a couple of years.
Yes.
Now, he doesn't even think he's making a din.
She didn't either. We had music, flashing lights, we had visitors, a constant...
You're entitled to music and
no,
flashing
Not
lights.
all day and night.
You are. If you want to listen to music in your house and flashlights in your house, you're allowed to do so.
Not when you're disturbing other people.
If you're half as noisy in the street as you are in the studio so far, I can understand why some people do complain. Let's give a chance to The thing is that these people, and whether they make a lot of noise or not is a point we're obviously discussing, but they don't think they're making a noise, do they?
They don't. Well, this lady particularly didn't. She had a constant stream of visitors day and night that if they couldn't get any response from her doorbell, they would shimmy up the drain pipe and to her first floor flat. And she didn't think anything was wrong. But it took a 2-year battle for all local residents with the council, because it's a council property, to get her moved. The problem has gone with her, and the lady who now lives below her is about 80 years of age. She owns her flat. She's had 2 strokes since this lady's been there, and she's now going to have to move out of her home of 37 years because she can't stand the noise. And older people feel intimidated.
Well, we've got some younger people here, actually, and they live near to Lee and Louise. Has it been a problem for you guys?
We didn't really think it so, no. It was noisy sometimes, but I mean, it's been in the press about Lee running up and down the street with his underpants on, but I wish I'd seen that because I don't recall it, and we were there before they moved in, and we didn't find it a problem. And
but then
always,
you're younger people, you're students, so maybe you're a little bit more tolerant of a lot of noise.
Yeah, but there's tolerance.
Toby?
There's tolerance, and then there's screaming music at 4 in the morning, and I have the room downstairs.
Your attitude stinks as well.
So does yours.
Oh dear.
Sorry, madam. Can I just... I didn't quite catch that. What lady up there in the...
I was just saying, was he a friend of this couple's down there?
We don't know them at
and
all.
I applied
You live next
negatively.
door?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's all we are. It doesn't mean we're friends with them. They just happen to live next door.
And can I also just say that I think the coroner's remarks in this case are absolutely disgusting. I mean, he's drawing an analogy between noise and an assault, and an assault implies intent, and there's no intent to kill someone here at all. It's just a very sad event whereby someone's level of noise has created a suicide.
I think, Toby, though, he was talking about the cumulative effect of the noise and the effect that can actually have on somebody. Somebody who's already vulnerable. I'm sure you can appreciate that.
But his remarks have helped blow the whole thing out of proportion, and the press coverage has been completely biased against Mr. Burke. And it's just disgraceful, really.
Okay. Well said. But the council, of course, had this noise abatement order. Now, you were speaking earlier on, Councillor Hassel. The council seemed to try and stop it. They even put noise monitors into the property, and yet nothing was done. And meanwhile, a man was driven to distraction and eventually driven to suicide.
And that I can understand. It's very easy to sort of be blasé about making noise. The fact is, I, as a councillor, I've been to see people that have to put up with this noise. And when you have the problem, you get somebody standing on the door. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. Is where one woman, she finally went to the council to ask to be moved because her neighbours were ever so thoughtful. They lived in the flat below. They used to play music, sit and drink, have parties till, on average, 4 a.m. every single morning, playing music. She used to constantly go down, ask them to cease the music. She was trying to sleep. One of the people had to go to work, obviously the clowns below didn't, and the one night she actually stood there, and I think that was the peak, when the guy actually said, "What music?" And she said, "The music that's playing loud." He said, "We don't play loud music round here," and promptly slammed the door in her face.
Yeah, but the only trouble is some people are very, very sensitive. Some people are natural-born complainers, and some people will always hear things almost when things aren't there to be heard. That's what happened to you, isn't it, Paul Doherty? What happened to you? You were accused by a neighbour of making a racket. What eventually happened? Cut a long story short for us.
Eventually I was stabbed in the neck and slashed around the back of the head. And received 27 stitches and 3 pints of blood in emergency surgery.
Some people are just looking for an excuse. Now, he claims he wasn't even making a racket.
I think the real problem you have, and we have to bear this in mind, is when people are playing loud music, is the effect on other people. You know, you're playing, and I don't know why, they play loud music, and it's always, and the bass.
Yes, go on, Paul.
I didn't have a stereo.
Yeah.
Wait, I moved into my flat with that stick of furniture, and I built that flat myself. And I tried to be a good, it's my first flat, I've always lived in bedsits and things like that. I moved into that flat with the best intentions to keep that flat as my first home to myself, without living in bedsits and sharing without everybody else. And the man downstairs made my life hell.
He just came across a vengeful character, and who are we to disbelieve him? He says he wasn't making any noise, and that is what he did to Paul, this particular character. Val, you run, well, basically a group for people who are suffering from what you call noise pollution, people who are being terrorised by neighbours with noise.
But I don't think
there are natural-born complainers.
I think we have to put it into perspective. Yes, there are some people that would complain, but we shouldn't detract really from the serious cases. These sort of cases should not be banded in with the cases where people are causing a problem for other people. That's a separate issue. At the end of the day, you have to collate evidence to prove that there's a problem.
Do you think the Lee Burke case is a serious case?
Absolutely, and I think the council should have done more to help the person who committed suicide. We have to understand exactly what happened.
Excuse me.
Harry Greenway, who had a private members bill, the Greenway bill, all about noise pollution. This was your particular thing when you were an MP. Yes, go on, sir.
It was. Noise can be proved. There is machinery which can prove whether noise is coming from one home into another. And if it's 35 perceived noise decibels in the home of one person from another, then that person can be fined £100 on the spot. And it's not happening enough, Councillor. It's not. How many times has it happened in your
until we get away from this. Right now, if we want to prosecute somebody under noise, we have to go under criminal legislation.
No, you do not.
Well, most times
under my bill, which is now an Act of Parliament, the Noise Act, the Greenway Act, people can be fined £100 on the spot. And if that happened more, you wouldn't have the suicides that we have. It's not only this gentleman,
Mr. Greenway.
many more.
Mr. Greenway, he's got 100.
Let's go to you, sir. Yes, gentleman in the yellow jacket, yeah.
The £100 that man has just said, that he would find the likes of this young man in front of me.
Yeah.
I find him intimidating. You've only got to look at him, the tattoo. Where would he get £100 from?
Well, hang on, sir. With every respect, aren't you in danger of judging a book by its cover?
Not really.
Just because he's got a tattoo.
Where would he get £100 from to be fined on the spot? Has he got £100 to pay a fine?
So what do you think? Hang on, Harry. Hang on. Supposing then he's guilty of making this unholy racket, what do you think should happen to him?
Champion helps victims go to court. So far, she's won more than 100.